Hello YouTube, and thank you for tuning into another Hanging with Heavy video. If you've been following along on our OxyFuel cutting series, today we're going to start and I'm going to show you how to actually use the cutting torch to cut a piece of material. Now there's a lot that goes with that, and let me start off with this. First things first, when you got your setup, you got a little book. In that book there's going to be a chart. That chart will reference your tip sizes. Now then, this is your cutting tip. They come in little plastic packages, and I'm going to zoom in on some of this and let you know what's going on. But this is your cutting tip. It comes in a little plastic package. Keep it into the package. This chart will tell you which size tip that you need to cut the material thickness that you're using. Now I've been talking about that all along, the material thickness and the tip size. You don't know how many shops I go into and there's one tip in that torch that cuts everything. They'll even try to braze with it. We have got a ton of different tips, and this tool is really versatile if you match up the right torch pressures with the right tip size to the right material. Now, also I want to talk to you a little bit about cutting safety. Whenever I'm cutting, I like to wear a pair of cutting glasses. Now these glasses came with the torch outfit that I bought. But not only will I use this, but I will also use a green shield sometimes to cover my entire face. On days like today when it's really windy outside, if you had the full face shield on, it has a tendency to want to blow away. So you might want to wear a pair of glasses. Now, these glasses have got to be at least a shade 3 glass. And if you're working outside, you might even want to go to a shade 4. But a shade 3 glass will allow you to see what it is that you're cutting so that you can make a nice, decent cut. To cut without glasses, what you're doing is you're exposing your eyes to a lot of visible light. So what's happening when you go into a dark room? Your eyes open up so you can see more. Whenever you're cutting, your eyes are going to close up because you got that light coming off of them. To protect your eyes, wear a pair of cutting glasses. All right, hang with Hervé as I show you how we mark out a piece of steel. We'll go over the torch lighting process and we'll light up the torch and make a cut. Before we begin our cutting process, let's take a look at some of the things that we're going to be needing to do that with. Glasses. If you wear glasses, reading glasses, make sure you got a pair of those. You're going to need some form of cutting glass. And you may want to use glasses, or you may want to use a cutting shield. You're going to need a piece of soapstone so that you can lay out your material. Your only approved lighter, the spark lighter. You're going to need a straight edge so that you can lay out a straight line. You're going to need a cutting tip, and you're going to have to reference the chart that you're going to use to set the pressures on your oxyacetylene outfit to begin cutting. So if you have the right tools to do the job, you're going to do a good job. There's nothing worse than trying to use the wrong tool for the wrong job. And if you have yourself set up in this manner where either you have a cutting shield, I wear glasses. So occasionally I have my glasses on and my cutting shield. If I can put my dark Nemesis safety glasses over top of my regular reading glasses, I'll do that. If I can put these over top of that. If I'm working outside, these are great. If I'm in the shop, I like that. And if I'm working in the shop all the time, I like this to protect my eyes so I can wear my reading glasses all the time. The most important tool on here, though, for you to make a successful cut is going to be the chart with the oxygen and acetylene pressures and the proper cutting tip. Now, I've been talking to you all along about the proper tip for the proper size material. Today, I'm going to demonstrate for you how to cut 5/8 inch thick material. Now, let's take a look at this. See if I can get this to work for me. You can see that I'm using a medium duty cutting torch, 12-1, 5/8, 16 millimeter for acetylene. Now I'm going to reference my chart. Let's take a look here, see if I can get my chart in here. You're going to see down here where I have 5/8 inch material. I'm going to use the MC12-1 tip. All right, here's my tip size, MC12-1. 5/8 material. I'm going to use 50 pounds of oxygen and 10 pounds of acetylene to make my cut. So Let's go ahead, set up the torch, and make a cut. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to initiate the oxygen and acetylene pressures for cutting the 5/8 inch thick plate using the MC12-1 cutting tip. Now if you remember, the oxygen pressures were 50 on the oxygen and the acetylene was 10. So let's go ahead and set those pressures. First things first, I'm going to make sure that this is loose. I see it's nice and loose. I'm going to take and open my oxygen valve, wheel valve very slowly. You'll notice that this climbed easily, and I'm going to open this valve all the way. Now, over here, this is my working pressure. I'm going to take my regulator adjusting screw, I'm going to turn it clockwise until I achieve 50 pounds of pressure. I now have 50 pounds of pressure at my cutting tip. Same thing on the acetylene. I'm going to make sure it's loose. Now then, on this one here, I'm only going to open it 1/4 turn and slowly. Okay, we notice it climbed. I'm going to set this at 10 pounds. Remember now, this has got a red line at 15, so we want to be careful and not exceed the 15-pound pressure. All right, now we have 50 pounds of oxygen at the tip. We have 10 pounds of acetylene at the tip. Let's go ahead and light the torch. Okay, now that we've got our torch set up, we've got our pressure set at 50 and 10 for cutting 5/8 inch thick plate with the MC12-1 tip. We're going to initiate the lighting of the torch. First things first, remember the green valve on a 2-piece torch. This valve goes on all the way. We want to make sure we turn it on all the way. By doing that, we're going to allow this valve to give us sufficient airstream up to the tip. On the acetylene side, we're only going to open it up how much? 1/4 turn. And how are we going to light it? With the only approved lighter, the spark lighter. I give a little acetylene. I light the torch. The flame leaves the tip. The flame joins the tip. I adjust to a pressure, a neutral flame. I depress the cutting lever. Eliminate whatever feather I have. And I don't know whether you can see that or not. But that is the cutting stream. Now, let's talk a little bit about this. The cutting stream. Here's what's going on. This does not get metal hot and then blow it away. What this does, it gets metal up to its kindling point. We introduce a stream of raw cutting oxygen where a chemical process takes place of oxidation. Imagine rapid rusting, and we're able to make a cut by oxidizing a piece of material, a piece of this steel, into the kerf line, as we like to call it. So let's go ahead and lay out a piece of steel and make a cut. All right, one of the key elements of getting your pieces to fit is for the torch cuts to be square. Let's take a look at that. This is my piece of material I'm going to cut today. If I come in with my torch at an angle like this, even though I may be cutting along the line, my part is much bigger than the piece requires. If I've got it jacked up like this, then obviously my part is not going to fit in the right fit either. So the trick is to keep your torch as 90 degrees to the plate as possible. If you do this, you're going to have a nice steady cut. Roll your hand along the line until you get uncomfortable. Stop. Get comfortable. Start again. That's the key to making a 90-degree cut. Now, in addition to keeping my torch 90 degrees to the plate, when I go to cut, I'm going to want to tip my torch at least about 2 degrees into the direction of travel. That's going to allow my preheating orifices to preheat ahead of me, and I'm going to hold those inner cones about 1/8 of an inch above the metal as I move my torch along. That's going to be the key to getting a nice cut. You want to preheat ahead of yourself a little bit. So let's look at this again. Once again, the torch is 90 degrees to the plate. It's about 1 degree into the direction of travel. Let's go ahead and light this up and see if we can't make a cut. All right, before I start my cut now, I'm going to have to start on this real raw edge. If I try to pierce through that raw edge, slag is going to come up and clog my tip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my torch lit up. I'm going to angle it away from my direction of travel until I heat up just that edge. Once I get that edge to its kindling point, I'm going to initiate the raw stream of oxygen, stand my torch up in about 1 degree direction of travel, and I'm going to make a cut. Leave the tip, join the tip, oxygen, good cut. All right, let's take a look at our cut. You're going to notice that there's not a lot of slag hanging on the back side. The top edge is nice and square. My drag lines are really nice and straight, and I cut until I got uncomfortable. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, is what's going to help you make a good cut. All right, YouTube, I hope you got a little something out of my 3-part OxyFuel torch setup, lighting, cutting video series here. Remember, you can always go back and reference it as often as you like, so that's the good thing about it. Another thing I want you to keep in mind is that whenever you're laying out your materials, you're going to use a piece of soapstone, and the sharper your soapstone, the better. If you can sharpen it up to where it's at a real sharp angle like a knife edge and lay out a line, you're going to lay out a real thin line. If you try laying it out with a thick edge, you're going to get a real thick line, and who knows which side of the line you're going to cut on. So, you make sure you sharpen up your soapstone. Next, make sure you get your layout tools. Okay? Nothing, you can't just scribe a line and cut it out. You got to use some layout tools. Last but not least, I want you to reference that chart and match up the right size tip for the right size material being used. Now, I'm working on the lighting. I got some poor lighting in here today, and I don't mind telling you, the wind is blowing so hard I hope it doesn't disturb our video. But until next time, YouTube, where am I going to catch you at? Haha, outside!